Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Groupthink. Groupthink is our dialogue series at CU where we pick a topic and talk about whatever feels meaningful. Today, we're talking about Notion, the all-in-one workspace that we use all the time for CU. My name is Madison, and I'm a high school senior from Verdigris, Oklahoma, and I'm joined by some amazing humans. So if you all could introduce yourselves, that would be phenomenal.
I'll go. I'm Julia. I run a platform called Gen Z Connect, and I live in Pennsylvania.
Hey everyone, I'm Maryam. I'm a senior from the suburbs of Chicago, and I'm 17.
Hey everyone, I am also a senior in Vancouver, Washington, and okay. My name is Ashley. I am a senior from Vancouver, Washington.
My name is Dariel. I'm a junior from Orlando, Florida.
Hi, I'm Jonah. I am a senior, 18 years old from St. Louis, Missouri.
Hi everyone, my name is Chabu. I am 19 and I'm a first year at the University of Toronto, and I am based out of Toronto at the moment.
Cool. And I am Gary. I'm one of the co-founders of CU, based in New York City.
Thank you all so much. So now we're going to start with our word association. So when you have your 3 words ready, shout them out and I can write them down.
I'm newer to Notion, so I kind of have like a clean slate outlook on it, but a word I would use is simple. It's like really easy to navigate and straightforward. Curious, because the platform just like encourages you to share short-term and long-term goals, thoughts, and all of those kind of things. And collaborative, because with it being a database and just a home for ideas for others to share.
Fancy smanchy, because whenever I export a PDF of it and send it to somebody that's not on Notion, the first question that they ask is, where did you make this? The second one would be collaborative. It's very easy to collaborate on. Google is also easy to collaborate on, but Notion just a little bit more smoother. And data oriented, because a lot of the Notion stuff that you can do is based off of data and numbers.
I guess I'd say versatile, just because there's so many tools that you can deploy when you're working in this space. It's very useful.
So for me, Notion is reminds me of the word comprehensive, just because I kind of do everything and anything in there. So it's like it allows me to do and organize all parts of my life. Encouraging, because it encourages me to document more than I already was documenting before, because there's a space to do that and do it well. And integral, because again, I use it for everything, whether it's school, work, long-term goals, Christmas shopping. Like I literally use Notion for everything.
Okay, my words would be organization, because it literally helps me organize my life, like Chabu was saying. Life-changing, because like I was saying, it completely changed the way that I use technology. And then the last one would be things like I do, because I'm not a tech person by any means, but I can like make Notion think like my Notion workspace think like exactly like how I do and set it up in the way that best works for me. So yeah.
So the words that I thought of was second brain, aspirational self, and then clarity, because I love relations on Notion and like it, I don't know, just like putting things in tables and like lining things up has revealed a lot of like patterns to me that I otherwise would not have noticed.
Awesome. And for me, I would say Google Docs, because I didn't realize how bad Google Docs was until I started using Notion. Everything, because you can use Notion for everything from your personal projects to making a website like we did for CU Summer Camp, and writing, because I do a lot of writing because of Notion. Gary, do you have 3 words you want to share?
Sure. Supercharging. I don't even know like how I would exist without Notion. I will also piggyback on Jonah Versatile. You can do basically whatever with it. And I guess I'll say groupthink because we're using Notion right now, and barely much of the functionality, but it's okay. You can do something very simple with it as well.
And I think that brings a first question to my mind. What is the most unique thing you use Notion for?
Well, I don't know if this is unique, but I didn't have any technology that allowed me to do this beforehand, but that's like making pages within pages, and it's kind of like anything can be a subset within anything, and it's like organization on steroids, which I love. So definitely the pages within pages.
Yeah, I definitely second that. I've started creating like these topic forests where like I just essentially like put like thoughts into pages and like they're just organized in like a bigger page, and like it's like a tree of ideas just branching out. But I love how Notion allows me to like do that, whilst in a Google Doc it would be like a bunch of hyperlinks, which would really suck.
So this is almost like a hybrid of how I use Notion, and then Notion helps me use other tools. So my Notion's like divided by like categories like general, school, my commitments, and they're all like the pages are color coded, and then my Google Calendar is the same color coding of that category as it would be in my Notion. So I guess like the unique way that I use it would be the fact that I allow it to like be the foundation for all my other organizational tools.
I don't have any unique use for it, but I do like how you can have pages within pages, like how Maryam said, and how you can attach files to different pages in the tables, which makes it easy for me whenever I'm editing videos for Gary or Maryam right now for the orientation. I can see which one goes with which. Like how I was editing a very enjoyable video before I got on here of showcasing Maryam and Madison's and Gary's acting skills.
Amazing acting skills.
One thing I use Notion for pretty much every day is I have my daily planner in Notion. I just keep track of like homework and to-dos and stuff. And I find the board feature incredibly useful for that.
And that brings another question to mind, because I had to do this today and I didn't know what to say. How do you explain Notion to other people?
Can I add to the top question?
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of us do the same thing because of CU, but I document and define my identity using Notion via Civics Unplugged's leadership blueprint.
Yeah, and I think like a thought just bouncing off of Gary, it's just like its simplistic design feels like an empty journal in a way, and just like subliminally makes you want to dump a bunch of thoughts and like brainstorms in there. So yeah, it's like one of the most simplistic designs that I've seen out of a lot of databases, and just makes you want to do those things.
jumping down to like how do you explain Notion to other people, this is something that I've struggled with because once I like started becoming obsessed with Notion after CU, I was like, everyone, you need to get Notion, it'll change your life, like download Notion, download Notion. And I think we had like a little trial period like during the fellowship where we like got used to like its basic functions, and then from there we were like allowed to do like whatever we wanted with it. But everyone kind of was like, oh, so you're just building your own website, which like it definitely isn't that, but it's definitely hard to explain it because it just does so many other things. And now I kind of just explain it as like it's an everything in one, like it's Google Docs and notes and this and that, and that's kind of how I do it, but it's still not completely comprehensive, so I'm interested to see what everyone else does.
So I have a hard time explaining it verbally, so I usually just show people my Notion, and then just like list out the almost like the variety of things that I can do on there. So like I'll be like, I do a daily accountability tracker or like habit tracker. I do a daily reflection on here. Here's like my monthly budgeting, but then here's also like my journaling and my course database for like all the classes I'm taking this semester and a list of internships I want to apply for. You know what I mean? Just like showing people the variety in the pages and then like showing them my pages, and that's kind of how I go about explaining it.
That's smart. I think it's helpful when you can say things like such as Civics Unplugged would not exist without Notion, and it's kind of like basically like a fuel source for it, right? I mean, that's not even the best metaphor, but it's like we use it for basically everything at Civics Unplugged, and a lot of the leadership team uses it for everything as well as all of you.
I'm seeing some similarities between our conversation yesterday with the 2021 fellows about the CU brand and Notion. People not really understanding what CU is because they don't have anything to compare it to, and the same thing for Notion. I think that that's a really good sign that whatever thing it is really revolutionary, is if you have like nothing to compare it to that does it justice.
Yeah. I like to think of it as you can do everything except for handwriting in Notion. Which I say kind of as a joke.
Except the camera? Is that what you said?
Everything except handwriting.
Oh, hand.
If the Notion people are watching, you should add handwriting.
Well, now you can with the they have like an iPad feature where you can.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, but I have something called a computer.
Well, there's interesting things.
I'll put everything except writing unless you have an iPad.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I use a lot when I'm for like the actual taking of notes is I use a smart notebook. There are a bunch of different brands out there that you can choose from, and I really like it because I like that tactile feeling of handwriting. And there's all kinds of data that show that helps you, but Notion doesn't integrate with really any of them, and I think that's going to change now because they're working on an API that will allow people to interact with Notion. But I would like to see that. I don't know, maybe if we do a limitations on Notion section, I can talk more about it there.
Yeah, we can do that.
That was a great point, by the way, Madison, about the parallels to CU.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to explain like something that is revolutionary relative to predecessors, there really is not a clean analogy. In fact, our hope should be in the coming years that people are like, oh, XYZ cool organization is the CU of X. Right? You want to create like a whole new category, basically.
Anyone else have limitations for Notion?
Being able to, what's the limitation? Being able to export documents without forcing, because whenever you have a page within a page, it has a clickable link when you export it as a PDF. And when you share it with other people that don't know what Notion is, they get super confused when they click on that link and it sends them to a website where like they don't know how anything operates. So maybe having the ability to export all of those pages as like things in the same document, where when you click it, send you to that page in the PDF document, will be helpful.
Oh,
So this is really tiny, but like just being able to comment in tables would be really helpful.
Yeah.
And getting rid of the title of those charts when you already have a heading over it, so it's not like duplicated.
Ashley, what do you mean by commenting in tables?
Because like right now you can comment in like the row, but like you can't like highlight what someone wrote and like comment on that, or like you can't comment on a box. Like you can only comment on like the whole table.
I see what you're saying.
Also for tables, I don't like how the first section has to be a name and you can't change what kind it is.
Well, you can move that section around.
Oh.
Yeah, but then it does weird things to your relations, like because like that one table has to be like, I mean that one column has to be like the title, and you can't like do anything else to that.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I think that like a limitation with Notion is the fact that yes, it's easy to like get the basics of it, but to become fluent in Notion takes time. And like once I got fluent in Notion, it became like my end all be all. But before that, it was a little difficult to like navigate it and use it to its full potential. And to this day, I don't think I'm like fully fluent in Notion. I'm pretty good because I use it all the time, but like it's a very hard tool to get to the point where you know that you know everything or like you can use it to its full capacity.
Yeah, and I would say all of you have the luxury of being immersed in a Notion culture. So you're kind of observing things even when you're not like actively trying to learn Notion, you're just seeing it happen. And also like if you have questions, anyone can help you. But if you're just kind of a lone person, and then, well, this kind of highlights the issues of being a lone person in general, like in the power of community in general. You're much more willing to experiment, take risks, even though this doesn't really feel like a risk, right? Take risks in trying a new platform, deviating from Google Docs. If you have other people that you trust that can help you onboard, right, to something that's less well known.
All right, any other responses to this one or questions?
I have a question that I kind of want to ask. If someone was to make one Notion page and one Notion page only, what's your like core foundational number one Notion page that you use, I guess is my question.
Or why don't we make it just a little bit more general, like use case?
What do you mean?
So like a collection of pages could fulfill a particular use case, like journaling, so like, right? You could,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so mine would be like my leadership blueprint, hands down. Like, does that count?
Yeah. That's interesting.
This is also kind of cheating because it's like a page that has pages in it, but Mine is called like day to day, and it has like my morning and night reflection templates and like my weekly to-do tracker, and I'm trying to think of the last one. Oh, it's like affirmations and like things that I'd want to tell myself on a daily basis. And it's really easy because it's separated from like all the other stuff. So it's really clear and very like, I almost want to say like short, but it's really small. So it's not like visually overwhelming to look at.
Sorry, I don't want to get too off topic, so I'm going to answer the question as soon as I say this thing. But Gary has a user manual in his leadership blueprint, and I think we need to note that. Like, I think
all right, Jonah. All right.
if we don't acknowledge that, I think we are missing
I know.
an opportunity.
Anyways, the inside joke for anyone watching is that Jonah thinks I'm an android/robot, which is
That's
probably
just Jonah.
I was going to say, the question though is, am I wrong? But anyway, to get back on topic.
Anyways, Jonah, we're going to add this to the 2021 fellowship because it's basically like, what is your personality? How should you work with me, and etc. It's actually like really, really useful.
Speaking of Notion, we should have a Notion page with all the videos of all the different fellowship classes. All the are we calling it like we changed the name, didn't we? Of the Monday morning
bonfires.
Oh, bonfires, yeah.
Yeah, we should have a Notion page of like the recordings of all the bonfires.
For sure.
Just because I'm curious about the stuff we're changing. But anyway, to answer the question, my Notion page would be basically the same as Noor's. I call it my daily planner. And yeah, I have all my things there.
Yeah, I'll hop on the bandwagon of Noor and Jonah. Mine is called Maryam's Mind, and it just has like my journal and my reflections and things that I try and do every day.
I wish I had a very alliterative name. That's one thing I don't like about my name.
It could be Jonah's journal. It's literally.
Oh, that's yeah.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Thank you, Maryam. I should have seen that.
Anytime, Jonah, anytime.
Something that I do with Notion that I'm glad to see other people starting to do as well is create a type of journal entry, you might say, called a brain drop, which is like a full thought about the world, right? It's like some observation about the world. And so I have a page that is just, it's actually just a table where you just click into a row and it's that full thought.
Is that your answer though? Brain drops?
Yeah. What about you, Madison?
It'd be what I call Madison's digital home. It has my daily and weekly reflections, and I used to call them brain drops, but I started writing way more than brain drops. Sometimes they're like poems or reflections on quotes and things like that, so I just call it writing. And yeah, that's basically it.
Cool.
My notes for class.
Are you super organized with those notes, Dariel?
Absolutely not.
I think my favorite Notion, I think my most used Notion page is definitely like my daily reflection and accountability tracker. But my favorite Notion page is my ideas page. It's literally just a table, and whatever idea crosses my mind, I just jot it down. Some of them are things that would take 30 years to formulate. Some of them are just like out-of-pocket commentary on something that I witnessed, but I love that I can just put it down and know that the idea exists somewhere, and if and when I'm ready to, I can always go back to it.
And sorry, what did you say it was called?
The ideas page.
The ideas page, all right.
Ooh, I have a question. How would you feel if you were forced to never use Notion again?
I mean, I guess it would depend on why I was forced to never use it.
Because you might have bigger problems if.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if I were, still doing all the things that I'm doing inside CU, and then someone's like, okay, no more Notion for you, everything would pretty much grind to a halt. I'd be stuck. Yeah, that would be an unpleasant situation.
This actually reminds me, this kind of answers like the limitations question, but a version of this event actually happening is when I want to do like a technology detox. Like I kind of can't, because my daily reflection is in the Notion. Like where am I going to do daily reflection?
Yeah.
So if I was to never use it again, I would kind of be at a loss, because there's a couple of things that I would have a hard time replicating in real life.
Yeah, it's interesting how a technology can be so useful that it literally it forces you to reevaluate things that seem timeless, like a technology detox.
This makes me want to pose a question. I mean, if someone else wants to answer this, they can, but I want to get it down before I forget. What has Notion taught you about yourself?
Oh, wow.
One of the things, like, after like a month of using Notion after the fellowship, so like, I don't know how many months that would be, but like quite a few months, I like tried playing around with like not hyperlinking, I forget what it's called, but it's like when you connect tables to other tables.
Relations,
yeah. And like it was cool because it wasn't, kind of like how Chabu said earlier, like it wasn't hard to learn, it just took time to learn. But being able to like backlink things and like see how entirely different pages could be connected was really cool. And I think it was almost like a forcing function to let me, it was both a forcing function and like a means to make connections more easier in my head, because like I knew that it could happen with the tables, and so it's like, how can I make it happen in real life too?
Yeah, well said. Wow. Hey, Lillian.
Hi.
You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Lillian. I'm 15. I use she, her pronouns. Is that good?
Yeah, sure. Lillian, I just linked the document in the chat, so feel free to kind of scan over it and feel free to answer any questions that are already here. You can jump in anywhere.
I would say for me, I thought that I wasn't super good at brainstorming or just like coming up with like ideas in a short period of time. But once I realized that if I was by myself and just had a Notion page open and could literally just like jot things down as they came to my head and start building on ideas, even simple features like being able to use dots and having like a dot underneath a dot helps me develop ideas a lot better.
So one thing that Notion helped me realize, purely on the basis of just like the sheer amount of pages that I've created over the past couple months, is the fact that there are so many thoughts, ideas, comments, whatever it may be, that I don't write down or don't articulate because there's no place to write it down. And by just having like the simple thing of knowing that there is a Notion page where I can jot this down and come back to it when I'm ready or have the bandwidth for it, has allowed me to be more creative, come up with more ideas, and almost like apply whatever new learning and insight I have, because there's like a tangible space to let that happen outside of my brain. I feel like if the thought just crosses my mind, it's very fleeting, and there's a very low chance that I'll be able to come back to it.
I think this is also really interesting. This is something that Gary talks about in defense of why he's not a robot, because he says that a lot of people do things in their life that technology could do and that he leans on instead. So for instance, like if you don't use a to-do list like Microsoft To Do or Notion, then you're going to be thinking about what you have to do throughout the day, and it kind of like clutters your brain. But because he stores everything in a place like Notion, it frees up his almost like his mind, and he can think about other things and be more creative.
Yeah, I mean,
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Lily, do you want to jump in?
I think that argument might be a little counterintuitive, because your argument for why you're not a robot is that you use technology to store your information, but
Notion has taught me that what your school forces you to use because they get it for free isn't the best option out there. Google Docs.
But also, like, schools could have free Notion.
I mean, if Notion integrated like an educational program, like how Google does for Google for education, I feel like they'd.
I'm like going to push back on that a bit though, because I feel like Notion has taught me that, I don't know, that it's important to be intentional in what I use certain tools for. Like, I feel like I've been so intentional in making Notion a space where like I can be creative and that is not connected to like school. Like in Notion, I write almost only in like lowercase, and I love bullet points, and I do not like use Notion for like college apps. Like I do not write my college essays in Notion.
Oh, interesting.
And like I just like I feel like that distinction has made Notion like a safe space and like a creative space for me to like access different parts of myself that I don't want it to be tainted by like school.
Oh, it's a sacred space.
Yeah, and also Notion's like, oh, go ahead. I was just saying, Notion's it's not universally the best tool. So I did all my college essays in Google Docs because they have a better spell checker, which is something I desperately needed, and they have a really good word count feature. And I can also interact with people right on the document very, very easily. And I mean, that was just what I needed for that particular task. So there are things. So Notion could be really good at all of those things, but then they would have to compromise and be less at other things. And I don't need another Google Docs. I've already got Google Docs.
Such a great point, Jonah. Wow.
I think it also goes back to Ashley's point. Like when you look at Google Docs, you kind of automatically think essays just because you see like the paper outline, while in Notion, it's just all white space and it kind of just feels more free form than relating it to school. So yeah.
Ooh,
wow. Kind of back to Ashley's point, there's a platform post coming to explain it, but I really don't vibe with like capital letters if I'm just like relaxing texting. That's like the phrase. They're like invasive to me. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but they feel cold. And the first like Noor HQ like Notion hub that I tried creating was all in capital letters, and I wasn't using it. Like I like stayed away from it, and I was like, I just never used it. And then I was creating my 2021 like version of it, and I find myself like using that a lot more, even though it's not the new year. But I like wrapped up December in it, just because like kind of like how Ashley said, like it's a creative space, but also I think Julia's point about it being like, when I see a Google Doc, I have that, like, I think lines in my head. And every time I go to journal, I try to journal without any dots or lines on the paper. Cause like your mind can like visually free flow, like, and connect things that aren't necessarily linear. And so I think those are the two kind of like things that stand out to me.
I agree with what's been said about like association. And I think going back to the question, what it's like taught me about myself, I think it's shown me how much I value like aesthetics of things. Not to sound like shallow and stuff, but I'm so much more motivated to like get started on a journal or something because I see, oh, this is gonna make my page look like it has more journals and now I can like actually be substantive. And yeah, I don't associate it with like all of the assignments that I have to do on Google Classroom and with Google Docs and stuff, which is big.
Yeah, like also I don't know like what about this like makes me happy, but like just the fact that you can like drag blocks of text around. Like I don't know, I feel like the act of doing that like gives me a different feeling than like if I like copy and paste a paragraph into like a different position. And like the fact that it's not only like linear, like you can do it like sideways as well.
I think what's like so incredible here is the fact that Notion is genuinely a reflection of like how your brain operates to an extent. So like the way that just like even just like intersectional thinking, like you're allowed to do that here really well. And for me, it also became a thing where like I was able to recognize patterns in the way that I think, and then also like improve certain things. Like for instance, I am very big on like having boundaries or like putting things into categories, hence why everything's like color coded in certain sections. But I also would like draft Notion pages and they'd be way too complicated for no reason. And then I wouldn't even get to use them because they were too hard to maintain. And that like realizing that's the way that I naturally think allowed me to kind of like reverse engineer the way that I think in a way that's like the simplest thing, the thing that I can use consistently is probably the best route to go with this.
Yeah, I'll second Chabu what you're saying because when I first started Notion, I was like, oh, there's so many things to do. And so I made this like giant headquarters with like all the different pages that I wanted to build up. And then I just didn't use it because it was like too overwhelming. And so once I started simplifying things and like making it cute with emojis and all that stuff, I started like just naturally going towards it. Yeah, Noor. Emojis. But okay, anyway, yeah, so I just think that like just okay, someone else.
I think to Lillian's point about it being like aesthetically pleasing, I didn't even realize this until now, but like going back to Google Docs, some of the like highlighter colors are so intense. Like they're so like bold, and I hate it. Like I really don't like it. And all of them on Notion are either like pastel or like muted. And I think that's like pretty. Like I think that makes it soft. You know what? Like the really bold colors on Google Docs have the same energy as like capital letters. Like that's what it feels like. And then Notion is just the opposite.
I will say though, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I will say that one of the like things I don't love about Notion is that you have to highlight like the entire line. And you can't do like if that has like bullet points coming off of it, then those are automatically highlighted. I don't love that, but I completely agree. The Google Doc highlighters are just like super aggressive and I do not like that.
Wait, what do you mean you gotta highlight the whole line?
Like if you do the if you click the little dots on the side and then you go, yeah. Oh. I'm just
I think that I like the fact that there aren't too many options with like highlighting, bolding, italicizing, all those things. Like there are very few things that you can do with Notion like that. Like there are a set few colors, there is one font. And that helps because I feel like I can just like get over involved and invested in just like setting everything up a certain color and like making it look a certain way. And so it forces me to just like not do that. Or if I do that, it's super simple.
Awesome. We can go ahead and move to the reflection portion. So I'm going to send the link in here. You guys can take a look at what we talked about and then we can reflect on it.
So
I'd say
something, sorry, so something that I saw like reoccurring was the fact that everyone kind of uses Notion as like complementary to the things that already exist in their lives. Like it adds to it rather than like, I don't know, like starting something new altogether. And I think that's really cool.
Dariel, were you going to say something?
yeah, I was gonna say Notion was annoying at the beginning because I don't like it when somebody tells me to use a certain system. Sorry, Gary, but and I'll be honest with you, I only use Notion for leadership blueprint, and then after those 2 hours or 1 hour of me working on it, I said sayonara until next week. But after I entered the Civics 2030 like campaign and I started actually using it uh, for planning stuff, I saw the use in it and I started using it personally.
I have to say the same.
Here's a conversation that Dariel's thing about the leadership blueprint reminded me of, because it was a conversation I had a long time ago about the leadership blueprint. Is for a little while I was playing with using the Notion desktop app, and I basically just abandoned that entirely.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, like I haven't touched it in forever because
No
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't add any functionality.
Yeah.
You can't open multiple tabs.
Yep. That's like the biggest thing about Notion. You can work on Chrome with like multiple tabs.
So I haven't touched it in months. But if I could, like, if I don't know, I don't even think that it gets
Another issue is if you click on the Notion link, it doesn't open up the Notion app. If you have it installed, it just opens up on Chrome, so it's just very easy to use on Chrome.
My jaw's on the floor because I am religious about the Notion desktop. But I guess the duality is that I'll use it for like the weekly planner or to-do list. Like it'll always be on that page. And then in Chrome, I'll open other tabs, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would like to be able to do is offline editing. That would be really nice.
This is more of a general like idea, but I think it would be cool if Notion has like different themes. Because like I get really tired of like both the light mode and the dark mode a lot. So if they introduce different colors, like that's like kind of mundane, but I think it would be super dope.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said at the beginning. Add different what?
Themes.
Themes.
Got it.
This is more of like a reflection on groupthink and Notion, but like it's cool to me that we can have like an hour-long conversation about it, but also that like people are really excited to have this conversation. Like I know that like at the start everyone was like, oh my gosh, like I'll totally like we can like run through our notions and like see how they differ and are similar. And I remember that one night like we did, like we just screen shared and showed it. So I think it's like a testament both to groupthink, but also to the fact that it's just like a really cool thing to have.
Yeah. On that note, I think a reason why it's fun to talk about Notion is because it's in a lot of the use cases that we all use it for, it's a way to express yourself in one way or another. So you can customize so many different things that if you share a page, it's sharing really like a lot of like your vibe and like your values.
Yeah, for me, like again, being like very much of a beginner, it's kind of the point I've kept making throughout, but just the design encourages people how to use the platform, even though the platform doesn't prompt you much at all. Just the design of it encourages you to use the space in a very free form way.
I also think that like it's such a big testament to Notion that like all of us have just become like Notion evangelists after like using it and can literally have like an hour-long conversation about why we love Notion, which I don't think, well, I don't know. I'm not super techie, but I don't think that anybody else would really want like, let's have a conversation about how great Zoom is or like Google Suites, but like Notion is just like so wonderful and it's just so great. So I feel like people want to have conversations about it, but I definitely think that figuring out how to like introduce it to other people in like a way that like they would want to use it without having to be immersed in like CU culture um is definitely something interested to explore more.
Well, Maryam, I guess the question that makes me think of in terms of like the whole persuasion aspect, um, it's hard. It really is hard to. It feels like it's really hard to convince someone to make a pretty meaningful lifestyle change unless they're really inspired by something or someone.
Yeah. Um, to that point, I think that like when people maybe like see other people using Notion and like get inspired by like how it looks or like how cool it is to organize it, it's like definitely easier because I know that like once my sister saw me using Notion, they were like, "Oh wow, this is so cool!" And like now everyone in my family is like, on Notion. But for like people that I don't see that often and like don't see me using it, like my cousins are like, "Oh wow!" Like they've seen it once and they thought it was really cool, but then they just like abandoned it because they're like, "Oh, this is too hard," and I don't like want to put in that much effort. So I definitely agree with that.
My mom's a teacher and she saw me using it and she really liked the way it looked. And like her students say that it's just like visually easy to follow along with stuff that she posts, that she like puts on there, screen shares. So like to Maryam and Gary's point, I think that's interesting.
Oh, that's really cool. Did she hear about it through you?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Gary, I can't get over what you said about how the way people use Notion reveals a lot about who they are. Like when I first saw the way Chabu like uses toggles and how she on her title she puts like one color, like usually a gray and then like a blue text over it. And then like just so like how just people use certain features because while it's really simple, there's like it's so nuanced and there's just so many different things you can do with it. So I just thought that was so interesting.
Okay, so here's my question. Do you guys highlight the like headings that are things that you're actively working on? Because when I highlight a heading, that gives it a kind of air of finality to me.
I kind of do that when I'm reviewing. Like if I'm going back through and studying and stuff, then that's when I highlight them.
One of the things that I've just learned through trial and error that is like, and I'll just put it down here. It's like I'll use a call out and I'll be like, this is just an early brainstorm of ideas. Feel free to add, edit, comment, whatever to it. And this is not just useful for Notion documents, right? When giving it to people, and also like kind of last updated, whatever date, right? And it's not just useful for Notion documents, but like the fact that there's like a call out like element makes it so easy to have like the disclaimers at the top. And again, this is like Notion agnostic kind of advice, but like what I realize is when people look at something that doesn't have a disclaimer, they feel really cautious and risk averse in giving any comments or feedback or asking any questions because they don't want to like offend the person that is sending that to them. Just an idea.
think there's like a lot of parallels between the fact that as much as it is like my Notion page, quote unquote, the way that people like engage with your Notion page has a lot of meaning. Like, is it appropriate to comment? Can I directly edit? Do I make another Notion page in this Notion page and then send you the link? And so I feel like there's like the way that you engage with the Notion page is also a reflection of just like the type of dynamic that exists there, which goes back to the fact that Notion is very much a reflection of like the person who's using it.
Yeah, it's like house rules. Like what? Like, do you take off your, I don't know, shoes when you enter someone's house? What are the table manners? Type of thing. Another thing that this conversation just brought to mind for me was that how can we expect teachers to adopt this if they're not getting help on how to learn how to use it? And why would they use a tool that makes them look like novices? And if they've spent like 10 years using Google Docs, and maybe they're just getting the hang of that, why would they switch over? So
Yeah, and just to add on to that point, I think at least like a lot of my teachers still struggle with technology that they have been using for so long. So like to get them to switch to another platform that's completely new would just be like a big ask overall, because I feel like tech is just not something that they have like any help with at all, and so it's pretty much just them on their own.
I know there's like a couple comments about doing like a Notion masterclass, but I think that if I had to sit down and learn Notion, I would dismiss it in a heartbeat. And it's one of those things that you almost have to like learn to love over time. And then you come to realize it's like personal added value for you. Like Notion is best learned through time and process and like having to work with it, like we did with the fellowship. And then it kind of makes sense after that.
That's a great point, Chabu. Any other reflections? All right. Well, that's
so I'm just realizing that this reflection itself was so useful. Well, the whole thing was useful. This whole group thing was useful because I think it's revealing to people dimensions of something that they care about / love, and enables the capacity for people to love it even more and take more full advantage of it, which makes me realize that we should definitely do something for Slack. We should definitely do something for whatever thing that we spend a lot of attention thinking about dwelling in.
Yeah, I definitely want to do one for Slack, because Slack and Notion are two of those things that I'm always learning new things about. Super useful.
Just like with Notion, there's also a Slack certification too. Yeah.
There's a Slack certification.
Yeah, you can be an admin or a developer.
Hold up.
Certified Slacker.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. I really enjoyed this discussion. Thank you, Gary, for making the page so much more visually appealing. We're gonna have to do that more in the future.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, if anyone's like been following along, all right, we've just kind of like been changing like one thing at a time, and it's been fun because it's like we're being really cautious about like the iterations. And I guess shout out to Jonah for breaking the rule in a good way. I think for word association.
I was about to say something about that, but I was like, you know what? I think that's fine if you just want to say one word.
I mean, it's a versatile word. I like autology. I don't know if that's a word, but we decided it is.
Why is a Slack exam $300 to take?
Yeah, well, it's $150 to take and then $150 for the prep course. So I'm thinking that's going to be a CU partnership kind of thing.
I'm gonna try and like convince my school to pay for these exams and have it as like a certification class for
That would be
career
awesome.
kids, for the career kids, because we have Adobe certification classes and stuff like that.
That would be cool. I might be able to swing that up.
I mean,
So many different things.
like, I feel like I use Slack often, like frequently. I'm probably in like 6 Slack spaces, workspaces. But what's the point of getting certified? Like, what's the end value? Like, what do you get from it?
Yeah.
All right, Madison, should we close out?
Yeah, I think that'd be good. Thank you all for coming tonight, and I will see you later.
All right, bye.
Y'all are just steering. Y'all are just not steering.